What's good, everybody? Sherman Webb-Middlebrooks, lifelong Buffalo resident and full-time black man, back with another episode of Igniting Hope Radio, the podcast. Glad that y'all joining us again. Make sure you click that like button. Make sure you click the subscribe button and get in the comments and let us know about your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions, and your responses to this program that we got for y'all. Today, I got some great guests, a good friend of mine, and two newer friends of mine here joining me in the studio here at Buffalo Center for Health Equity on the wonderful Canisius University campus. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to have the fellas go around, introduce themselves, who they are and what they do in the community, and we're going to chop it up and have some good conversation here on Igniting Hope Radio. So, the brother to my right, my man Scotty P. Tell the people who you be.
Who I be is, my name is Scott Pagliaccio, and I run a men's group called the Badass Men's Alliance Men of Legacy, and I love men, I love helping men, I love empowering men, I love being a part of a men's group, and I love serving in the community. So our approach is, I call it the 3-pillar approach.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 3 components to this men's group. There's a relational piece where we circle up weekly, we sit down, we learn to communicate and navigate conflict in a healthy way, so we're not killing one another. Because if you look out into the world, you see men are doing some pretty deep damage, man. And I want to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. So we learn some very street level tools on how to navigate conflict. That's the first piece. So the relational piece is so important that we as men get that dialed in, so we're not reactive and defensive and coming from my emotions, reacting. I like to say that we learn how to respond out of the deeper harmony of the universe with love, coming from a loving place. We have choice in how we respond to what's coming at us from the outside world. So it's not cause and effect. We're, in essence, cause and effect by how we show up. So that's the first piece. The second component is a service component. So Anubias is a part of the group, and one of the things we do in the community is, I started when I moved back was to start a service project of my own, and it was getting involved. Homeless outreach has been a big part of my life since my kids were little, so for probably well over a decade. When I lived in Dallas, we just used to take our children out on the streets, and we started to just fellowship and bring food and clothing out to people who were sleeping under bridges. And when I moved back to Buffalo, I was like, okay, I need to get plugged into the community so I can serve. So I met a brother who turned me on to the Buffalo City Mission.
Yeah. And
I went in, I met with Julia, who's the director, and she's like, yeah, we'd love to have you, what are you thinking about? And I'm like, how about if we just serve the men dinner? And she's like, yeah, but what about an activity? And I'm like, yeah, man, that'd be cool. Sure. And we started bingo. Like, what about bingo? And then it's bingo. Yeah, and then it turned into it's now known as lit bingo. And the host is what makes it. He is the caller. Yeah. And it's lit because of the way that Sherman shows up and the energy that he brings and the other men bring, man. It definitely, it's a collaborative effort, but it wasn't lit bingo until you brought your heart into it, man.
I just like opportunities and spaces where I can be loud and slightly vocal.
Yeah.
That's all. Just loud and
just being you, authentically who you are, and that's the beauty of it. You bring that to the, I can't do you the way you do, like, so you bring that essence, that flavor, that wasn't present until you showed up and started volunteering. So that's the second piece. And then the third piece is a fitness piece.
Yeah.
Bringing in like a rite of passage, a crazy, hard, difficult thing that we have to put our bodies through, because I think as men we need to do hard stuff. Like life is going to harden us. And if we're not ready for that, it's going to take us out. And so Anubias will be the first graduate of
Wow.
the Badass Men's Alliance Men of Legacy. And
Yeah.
the workout that we're doing, I was telling, it's Mike, correct?
Brian.
I'm sorry, Brian. Brian, I was telling Brian that I like CrossFit. So CrossFit,
That's how you stay looking and being so youthful.
yeah, and yeah, exactly, man. And one of the things that really inspired me to bring this component in was they have hero workouts, and the hero workouts are based off of men, typically men who have died in the line of service, and they're really grueling and long and hard. So not only are we honoring this young brother for going through this 8-week rite of passage and kind of transformation, but we're bringing in a man who died in the line of service, and this workout is named after him. So the one we're doing is called Clovis, and it's a 10-mile, 150 burpee pull-up workout, which is it's crazy, man. Like, but just think about it. This brother gave his life.
Yeah,
right? And
put it in context.
Yeah, so I thought I want to bring something, and I'm going to do it with him.
Yeah.
And we're going to bring other men in from the community and other organizations to take part, to hold space, to do, to serve in a way that feels good for them. You want to do the 10 miles? Come on. You want to just cheer on the sidelines? Cool. Whatever. We just want to bring men together and expose them to our group and what we're about. And then the most important thing is honoring the men that are going through it. So that's what I'm up to, man.
Word. Thank you so much. That was very comprehensive, good brother. We're going to circle back to some of that there throughout our conversation. But Brother Anubias, talk to us. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you decided to join the first Badass Men's Alliance class.
Well, my name is Anubias.
Let me stop. That's a unique name. We can't move past that. I ain't never met Anubias before or after. So, like, does your name have a particular meaning or significance? I've always wanted to ask you that.
It's related to the Egyptian god Anubis.
Okay.
My favorite thing to tell people, the meaning behind it is something that I'm creating right now. Right now, I feel like it means to be a leader.
Yeah.
It means to just keep pushing to do better, continue to learn, and just mastering my craft and serving the community and just helping people out.
So why did you decide to join the Badass Men's Alliance, my man, Scott and Pete?
I wanted to join just because it was something new. I love to learn. I love to continue to grow in just a lot of things, whether it's with cooking or even just relationships. And I feel like I was struggling in that, just with my relationship with my family members or just my significant other. And I felt like this was going to help me just perpetuate with that. And so far it has, but it's also helped me build a stronger relationship with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one of the most important lessons that I've learned so far, just creating a stronger relationship with myself and holding myself accountable, putting in that work, and just doing that.
Appreciate that, good brother. Most definitely appreciate that. Again, we're going to circle back to some of that in our conversation as well, but I want to go ahead and get Brother Bryant in on the conversation. So, Brother Bryant with a T, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
As in Kobe.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Got you. Word, I love that. So, you're newer to the Buffalo area, very new. And so we met when you did the mental health first aid class. And so that was dope being able to get to know you through that class. And just being in a room of men who were looking to better ourselves in order to be a resource and asset to others. So tell us a little bit about what brings you or what brought you to Buffalo. I know you kind of shared off camera, but go ahead and let the folks know what brought you to Buffalo, what keeps you in Buffalo, and what you're sort of looking to build and do here.
I came to Buffalo 4 months ago, and the reason I moved from Westchester County downstate is because love.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm engaged to a beautiful sister
Word.
who has just been fantastic, and she's been a great source of calmness and has just brought out in me the confidence that I've always had.
Mm.
But being I'm probably the oldest member of this quartet at 60. I just turned 64 a couple of weeks ago.
Oh man.
And
Word.
and moving to Buffalo, God had it's although it's about love, but it's also about God. I'm very much a religious, spiritual person, and I believe that it was time for me to move. I did all that I could back home in Portchester,
Yeah.
and so I've always been someone that's been active in the community, that's always given back. I've always been about the our youth.
Mm-hmm.
So I have two sons, and being around them during their growing up years, and I've always wanted to give back to the youth. So I've spoken at schools, I've coached kids, I've been around youth. So I accepted an assignment. That's what I say.
Yeah.
God said, "This is your new assignment." So getting to meet you guys last week was just such a. It was deep for me because I had been sitting at home, just kind of less, trying to get myself. What do I want to do? I semi-retired now, so like, what am I doing? What I want to do? So I started writing again,
Okay.
and I guess that's something we could talk about later.
Yeah, you
But
mentioned something about you wrote, authored some books, right?
I haven't authored any books yet. I just decided that I wanted to do my autobiography. I guess my backstory is something that we can talk about further. But a couple of books that I wanted to do beforehand that I thought about, so I started writing that. But it was just about always being involved in the community and just wanting to do something to make a difference. I'm always about making a difference. My mother was really big on community service, and so I learned that from her. And being someone who was a product of a group home when I was a youth, so knowing so many people were involved in my development and in making me the person that I am now, is something that I always wanted to do, and I've done pretty well, I think, with that through the course of my life and lives of others. And now that I'm here, I want to be able to do the same.
That's dope. And I think about the stages of manhood, right? And how we're moving through stages, and like that's why I like the Nurturing Fathers program in these groups, because it gives you an opportunity to reflect on things that you probably never would have thought about before. And so, like, one of the things that they talk about is the 3 stages of a male, right? So you have the boy stage, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with like age, because these, at least in my personal opinion, these stages don't always go away. Sometimes they can be fluid. So you have the boy, the man, and then the patriarch. And so if you're looking at it about age-wise, like usually when you're young and impulsive and selfish, like you're acting like a boy, you're in your boy stage, right? And then once you learn responsibility for self and others, and you have that degree of consideration, and you do things that are a little more self-sacrificial, and you begin to provide, again, not just for yourself, but for others, you're a man. You're in that man phase and stage of your life. And then once you have provided all you can and need to, you handle your responsibilities, and you are in the patriarchal stage where you're doing more reflection, guidance, advice giving, wisdom, putting people in your family in position, and really starting to more so think about your legacy and your life as a whole. And so, again, I don't think it always has to do with age, because I know when I go buy me a new pair of shoes, that's the boy showing up. That's boy me, like, yeah, boy me got access to the man's money. And so boy me is gonna do that. But I also understand too, like in a patriarchal sense of like when I meet a young person and I'm looking to influence, if I present a certain way, that might reduce the barriers, and then I could pour into that young person knowledge, wisdom, and experience. So I don't want to necessarily wait until like I'm at the age where I'm supposed to do it to think like a patriarch. I want to be able to think about my legacy and my life like as I'm living it, as I'm doing it. So I really kind of wanted to toss that to you, Brother Anubias. I think you might be the youngest person in the group. So how like have you been looking at the men around you to kind of build the man who you are and who you're growing to be? I know you said that's part of the reason why you got involved with Scott.
I see them as mentors, just with them sharing their past experiences, like how it has affected them in their lives and the outcomes of it, how they've shown up in the world, and like I model that as in to figure out how I want to show up in the world, and like with those moments and having my own experiences, it's just me and my sister right now. She's 16 years old, so I try to, give her some wisdom or, some guidance in that type of manner of just what I've learned from other people, other men, that I've learned. And even you mentioned the Nurturing Fatherhood program.
Yep.
Just doing that class has definitely created a lot of insight and just shared a lot of wisdom with me, where I've taken it into my home and raising her and just like holding her responsible.
Responsibility.
Yeah, letting her know that there are consequences for certain things. Yeah, just stuff like that.
Right. So, as the two elder statesmen on the panel, I kind of toss this to y'all. Y'all can kind of take it from there. So, like, what are some of the things that like have presented not just challenges, but like opportunities for you to grow and develop, like as a man, as you move into the traditional patriarchal stage of your life? What have been some of like the greatest challenges that you face, and how did you overcome them?
Brian.
I think for me, and keep it real, I grew up in a group home, as I mentioned, and the high school that I went to was predominantly white.
Okay.
When I went to college, I went to college at Brockport.
Okay. That's
So
exit 47.
Yeah.
So
90s,
when
baby.
most of my friends were white.
Okay.
So when I came back home and lived in the Bronx, lived in the South Bronx, and I started, I felt like a fish out of water, obviously, because of the cultural differences that was presented to me as a child, and what I saw in front of me as I moved back home. The thing was for me, when I started going back to schools and talking to kids in schools, I was wondering if I could make sense, if I could be real with the kids, and wondering if I would be able to connect with them, because I lived a different life. That was probably the greatest challenge, and I think the thing was for me, all I needed to do was just be myself.
Yep. Everybody else is taken.
And yeah, for real.
I love that.
For real.
That's dope.
And it just worked. It just worked. And I think the thing was that I wanted to make sure that they understood that the success that I had up until that point, you can do it too. You know why? Because I'm from this area just like y'all are.
Yeah.
And I was able to overcome everything that was presented in front of me, all the obstacles, all the naysayers, everything that was put in front of me, that I knew what I wanted to do, and my head was down to the grindstone, as they say, and just I wasn't going to be denied. And that was the important thing to make the kids understand, and say that you can do it too, but don't give up who you are. And understand that there's ways of circling around all that, because as a black male, you're put in the world as far as dealing with the other side, with all the whites and everything that we go through as being a black male. I had to learn how to circumvent that, and I did. And whether I was listening to the music or whatever the case may be, I still kept a lot of myself, because even though I might have listened to, let's say, the Rolling Stones, but on the other hand, I'm still listening to Stevie Wonder.
Right.
I'm still listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Right.
So I'm keeping on. So that I never lost that inner self, and be able to understand how to work, had the workings of living in both worlds, and being able to make sure that my speeches and that my interactions with our youth was able to permeate through them and be able to make a difference. And it worked, and it's worked up until this point. And not patting myself on the back or anything, but I'm pretty proud of how I was able to work it. And if I can just tell one quick story that just really resonates at this point. Well, I was in the Bronx, and I was going to coach this youth team from the our all the projects. So I was coaching our local project youth team. I had this kid who was 10, and he handled the ball like I've never seen anybody handle the ball at that age ever. Even better than kids twice his age. But during practice, he didn't want to do what I wanted him to do, and he said, "I'm not going to do this." I'm like, "You know what? Then you have to go." So I kicked him out of practice. However, we hadn't gotten our uniforms yet. The season hadn't started, so it was all preseason workouts. But in my mind, I was going to give him until Thursday, because we were getting our uniforms on Friday. So and I kicked him out like on Monday. So I was giving him a week to come back. And if he hadn't come back by Thursday, when he came back on Friday, because I knew he was going to know that his boys were going to tell him, "Oh, we're getting our uniforms today," and I knew he was going to come back to come and see me. Too late. It's too late. And he was my best player, but it was too late.
That's the message.
But I'm going to tell you something. He ended up playing college ball at Florida State, and he played in the NIT at the Garden, down at the Garden at the time. And I went to the game, and he saw me, and he remembered who I was. And he came up to me and gave me this biggest hug and said, "Thank you. You're the only one that's ever stood up to me up until now. You're the only one that stood up to me, that told me what I needed to do, how to get right." That's what, some 30 years ago?
Yeah.
And that still resonates with me today.
Sure. And you never know when those moments are. I'm like that because I work with a lot of young people too, and they're like, "Yo, remember you said this and this?" I'm like, "What? I did." But like one of my homegirls on Facebook, she was like, "I just did a group at a school, and your name came up," and I was like, "What? I don't work at that school." And she was like, "No." At the end of it, she said, one of the kids like, "You remind me of this guy I met named Mr. Sherman. And he was just talking so much shit to me, it made me want to get my life together." And I was like, "That's definitely sound like something, because that's my approach."
Yeah.
Like, minus the abuse, like, I'm gonna shame you to success. Like, you ain't doing this, you ain't doing that. Like, that's my approach. Now, it don't work on everybody. But like, if you need that, like, there's sometimes you need a soft place to win. Sometimes you need that firm rock, right? Or what they say, don't be afraid to let people hit rock bottom, because remember, God made the rock. So sometimes God uses me as the rock. When people like, "Nah, it ain't time to be soft. It's time to really get at it. But if you need a more gentle approach, no problem. But like that little gentle hand holding stuff, it's got you as being a 17-year-old freshman. You might want to get your together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the time for hand holding and kumbaya is kind of over now. Yeah. Like you staring down like an unfortunate, unsavory reality if you don't make changes now. And I ain't come to lie to you. I don't got that much time. You know what I'm saying? But
boundaries are important.
Yeah.
It sounds like you set a hard boundary for that young man, and
yeah,
it's probably hard for you to do, right, Brian?
No, it was pretty easy.
It was easy?
Yeah.
It used to be hard for me, man, to set with my own children. And so that's something I had to learn, but I see how beneficial it is, like, you know, doing that. You did something for him, not to him.
Yes.
He could have took it as, I can't believe my coach did this and been pissed off, but
he probably was pissed off.
I bet he was, but he needed to hear that. He needed to have
that. But for him to resonate 10, 12 years later, like, because he's already a senior at Florida State at the time.
And thank you for it.
So he came up to me and thanked me and gave me a hug.
You never know who will impact you. And I always say, like, yeah, I care about people. I'm a trained social worker, but like, if it come down to, I care less about you feeling better when you leave and more about you being better. You cried, so what? Are you gonna make a change that's gonna improve your life? When you wipe your tears, are you gonna make a change? Like, those feelings are gonna go away, but who you are is who you is, like all the time. So like, you might feel good right now, you might feel bad right now, but like, if you're a good person, a hard-working person, and an honest person, that's who you are. That's who you are. That don't really change.
Yeah, that's underneath all your feelings.
Right.
And you have to remember that.
The foundation.
Yeah.
So, Scotty P,
yo,
what's been like your greatest challenge, and how have you dealt with it and overcame it, like as a man moving into the patriarchy?
Man, I love this question, and I was thinking about it as I was listening to all the other men answering. My biggest challenge is the relationship with my children and the relationship with myself, like to show up as powerfully and as much of the man and leader that I came here to be, which is an ongoing project. I'm constantly growing, constantly developing. I feel like there's no relenting. Like I choose to continue to work on myself and lead and serve in the community like Brian. I love it. But my biggest challenge was myself and learning about me, because I lived in Buffalo for 27 years, and at the age of 12, I started using drugs and alcohol to numb over the pain of the abuse, bullying, and this was by the people that supposedly were supposed to love and take care of me. And I think, Anubias and I were talking about this earlier, I've worked on myself to forgive the people, my mother, my father. I know that they were doing the best that they could. And so I left on my hero's journey at the age of, I don't know, in the mid-90s, but I still continue to use drugs and alcohol for 2 decades, 12 to 36. So for 2 decades straight, I was numbing over the pain, and I got to this close to death. And I met a woman, and I got her pregnant. And once I got her pregnant, I realized, like, I am not going to show my children drugs and alcohol. They'll never see that from me. So prior to that, if I back up a little bit, I met a woman that moved to Lubbock, Texas, and she is the one that was the catalyst for me to start getting healthy. Okay. So I lost 50 pounds. I started getting into fitness. I started becoming a personal trainer and helping people. So as I started to take better care of myself and challenge myself and get right in my mind and my body and my spirit, I realized, I want to help other people. This is what I came here to do as a man. And then my children got older. I was still, even though I was sober, I was in better shape. On the outside, we had the houses, we had the cars, everything looked good, but my emotional well-being was not tended to. So all of that numbing over the pain from childhood started to be woken up in me by my partner, and that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to wake those parts of you up so you can heal them, but I wasn't aware enough self-aware enough to know that that's what was happening. I was blaming her, and I was, it got violent. I was verbally abusive, mentally, physically. It got to the point that I got physically abusive towards my wife, and that was, I'll tell you about that. So things started to come up. I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. I was like blaming her, and 2010, I had been sober for a while. I'm a good dad. I was present. Cell phones were not a thing back then. I took my kids everywhere. I did everything with them, my daughters, my son. Like, I was so proud to be a father. My personal life, my spiritual life, and my physical life was like on this trajectory that was going through the roof, but my personal life with my wife, my relational life, was falling apart. And so in 2010, it came to a head. We got into a huge argument. I wanted to put the kids to bed, and she wasn't cooperating, and I couldn't take it anymore. All of that 2 decades of stuffing all of my anger and rage down came to the surface, and she was recording me. I'll never forget this. Recording me with her phone to give to the lawyers to say, hey, you're a great guy, but you're also kind of crazy and a maniac. And I didn't see that. I was like, no, this is normal. This is how I learned how to deal with my shit. You scream and yell. I'm Italian. My arms are flailing. I'm screaming and yelling. But that does not garner your wife to feel safe, nor your children. Mm-hmm. And even though I was a great dad and I was present in their lives, I volunteered in their schools, I showed up for everything, they didn't feel safe around me because there was a ticking time bomb. 1 minute I was this calm dude, they didn't know who was going to show up. Next second, I'm this fucking maniac who's screaming and yelling. So I knew my wife was going to divorce me, and I knew she was getting evidence. And so I didn't feel like I was resourced enough to do anything other than to shove her to the ground and take her phone while she was holding my 2-year-old son. Not only did she fall to the ground and skin her knee, my son hit his head on a dollhouse. And then we called the police. They showed up. But prior to that, they barricaded themselves in one of the bedrooms, and I kicked the door. And when I saw her crying and my kids crying uncontrollably, I just kind of stopped. And that's when I called the police. They came and they said, somebody's got to go to jail, Mr. Pagliacci. It's going to be me. So they put me in the back of the car. I'd never been arrested ever in my life. I've never had any problem with the law. I've never been violent, especially with a partner. So I was sitting in the back of the car with my hands cuffed. It's 110 degrees in June. Texas. I'm about to literally lose my mind, like start to scream and cry uncontrollably. And I remember this voice came over me and it said, "You're safe. This is how this is your out. God, whatever you want to call it, man. I'm a spiritual dude." And I just softened, and they took me to jail, and I called my wife. I said, "Hey, I need you to come get me." She goes, "You're not my responsibility." And I didn't get angry. I was like, she's right. I need to be a man. I need to take responsibility for my behavior. I need to show up more powerfully. And so the challenge is, I guess I'll get to that, so that was a big challenge. Yeah. And I was like, I'm the one common denominator in all my relationships. I need to learn about me. She had a part, but I couldn't do anything over there. I could only work on me. Yeah. So I started to get to work. I'm like, okay, I got the fitness thing dialed in. I got the spirituality thing dialed in, but I need to learn about myself relationally and get some therapy, get some coaching, get some help. So I dove into that. But I had damaged the relationship with my daughter. So I guess to answer your question in a roundabout way, the biggest challenge that I face right now is continually repairing the relationship with my daughters. And that's what drives me to do the work that I do. The relational work, the conflict work. Mm-hmm. It's not out there, it's in here. And the more, what I realize as a man is, I was telling Anubias this earlier, we have an impact on every space we walk into, man. So being grounded, being embodied, being a safe space for other people is very important. So I'm relentless in finding mentors, finding men, finding women, taking courses and learning about myself, so I can then teach these young people. Like, because what I've noticed is nobody's getting this download. Nobody's teaching young men or women, for that matter, how to be less reactive, how to deal with your emotions in a healthy way. Nobody modeled that for me. It was like, you know,
What's the phrase? If the only tool you got is a hammer, every problem becomes a nail. Every problem is the only tool I got to handle this.
Yeah.
So I'm handling everything like this.
Yep.
That's all I got. And so a lot of times we don't have the tools, and folks can only give you what they already got. So like, I think that was part of my personal journey of getting to forgiving my parents. Being like, man, you set me up. I got to, like, life's a relay race. Like, you didn't hand me the baton, like, at a head start. You tossed me a lateral. Like, I started at the same place you started. Yeah. And like, I'm mad at you for that. I resent you for that. I see people around me that's my age, who parents and family members were able to accelerate their growth, their progression, help them get in positions to achieve and accomplish their goals. Like, I have parents who are sometimes dependent on me. Like, this is a reverse of a relationship. And then I realized, like, well, look at your grandparents. Look at the environment situation they came from. What did they have to give your parents? Okay, you know your parents. They've been your parents your whole life. You know their backstory, their history. You know their friends. You know their siblings. You know their parents. What were they going to give you? They gave you everything they had. They gave you the best they had. My mother used to always say, I can't read, I can't do this, I can't do that. But I'm going to find somebody who can. I can't show you how to do this. I know what I don't know. But you better go talk to that mentor. Matter of fact, hey, he going to be here waiting for you. Get ready. They coming to get you. Like, she going to send me to whatever or whoever, my uncles, my dads. You going to learn whatever I can't give you, because I know I don't have it. Because she was in a place where she reflected on, I made these decisions, like, these things happen that were out of my control in life. The combination of that has put me in this position in life where I feel like I'm a bit behind. And I want my kid to get ahead.
Yeah.
And I can't give him nothing. But what I can do is own my situation and then find resources and outlets to give my kid what they need. So I always love and respect my mom, but it took me to understand, like, they gave me what they had.
Yeah.
That's what they had.
It was limited.
It
wasn't
limited.
bad or wrong.
Yeah, but they didn't withhold it. They didn't abuse me. They didn't neglect me. They just gave me what they had.
Yep.
And it just changes that perspective. So I think, like, as we all continue to grow and develop, sometimes we got to give ourselves grace and be like, at that time, I gave you what I had. But it's also our responsibility to try to seek and learn and achieve more.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. And that's what leads me, that's what leads me to wanting to do the work that I do in the community. And I left Buffalo 32 years ago as I say broken, but I was a drug addicted, alcoholic. And I use those words. I don't like those words, those terms. I don't like to label myself. But I came back after going through all, getting sober, getting married, finding mentors, doing the work, changing my psychology, changing my physiology, continues doing the work. I came back as a leader in my community. I left as a nuisance and as a problem in the community. Like, we don't need more of you here, Scott. So, that's what the way that I look at it. Then I came back as a man who can now, he took his situation, he turned his pain into his passion, he turned his what do they say? His
so many phrases.
Yeah. Anyway,
His defeat to victory.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And now I'm leading and guiding and mentoring other young people and older people too, man. It doesn't matter, just in men specifically, because that's the only experience that I've had. Right?
Yeah, I've never been a woman.
Yeah, never. So I can't. But I've talked with women, and I've been able to mentor some and help them get a man's perspective.
Yeah.
But my biggest challenge is relating with my daughters. It's not for a lack of being able to. It's just that they're in a space right now where they want their space, and I respect that. I've had conversations with them. I've gone and visited them in college. That's, I think, my biggest challenge is just, gaining back their trust. So that's the biggest thing. But I'm relentless in my pursuit of being the best man that I can be and helping people regardless, because I look at the people and the men that I'm serving, a lot of them younger, and I feel like we all belong to one another. So whose kids are they anyway? It's my responsibility.
Right.
I want to bring back I was telling the guy earlier, I want to bring back the village mentality.
Yes, sir.
We all need each other to raise one another. And listening to you talk about what it's like to deal with racism, and I'm the only white dude in the room right now, and I feel honored and privileged to be able to sit down with you men and hear what it was like for you as young men to deal with shit that I never had to deal with. It's like, fuck, I didn't have that added layer of difficulty to deal with when I was coming up. You're a man, and that's hard. Now you're a black man, that's even harder. So
there's some poverty in there, then you really got yourself a recipe for something.
Yeah.
but you got yourself a recipe. I ain't want to say for disaster, but you got yourself an interesting recipe. No, I really do appreciate that, Scott. That's the one thing since the day I've met you, you've always been very transparent and vulnerable in a way where, like, you want to use yourself as a vehicle to help others. And I think we're akin in, like, this philosophy, whether, I know it's intentional for me, but I get the vibe from you that, like, I'm not going to die with this wisdom and knowledge.
I'm not going to die with my fucking music inside me, man.
Yeah.
No,
I'm going to let it out. I'm going to give it to somebody, like, whether they take it and use it, but, like, I ain't going to die with all this knowledge and information. I'm going to pour. So, transitioning to Brother Anubias, as a younger brother, what are some of the biggest challenges that you anticipate as you move into grown manhood? Because I think there's young manhood, we just figuring it out, then there's grown manhood, right? So as you're moving into that, what are some of the things that you're, like, anticipating and trying to prepare yourself for?
I think this relates to the conversation me and Scott were having earlier, just being afraid to lose certain relationships.
Okay.
So, like, anticipating that, whether, the decision that I make, like, for example, we were talking about me deciding to move out of my mother's house, and just with that whole ordeal of knowing that that's not something that she would want, but that is something that I would want. Like, I would want to be free, just not be in control, not have her control, just not have her control, like, my living situation or anything like that. So just fear of losing relationships, for sure. Another thing, probably the fear of making wrong decisions, just failing or just not being able to get back up. One of the things that I like to do to talk myself out of that is just that there isn't really any right or wrong answer. It's just life is just experience, like, you take it and you go with it. You just, as long as you keep getting back up or you keep moving, you'll get to where you want to be at the end of the day. Just not giving up